So good evening, everybody. October is, y'all see me my sweatshirt on, my maroon sweatshirt on? Any Jamaicans in the house? You don't have to be Jamaican to know about the maroons, but they have special love, special connections. I am Benita Clemens, the founder of FarmaSIS.
Oh, I was on mute. I'm sorry. I love it.
We've been around since about 2016. And FarmaSIS's mission, Mary, you want to tell the mission? I'll tell it. You on mute, Mary. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and train 10,000 Black women to grow at least one food item in their home. Now, I know if I can get them to grow one, they're going to grow more than one, so I'm kind of tricking them a little bit here, right? So to grow at least one food item, and we create another food system. So Sister Mary's on here. I got some things from her last year, radishes, and she got some beautiful pecan trees, but she's growing some more things this year. And Mary, on the after party, let's talk about that lime. So again, our mission is to educate, train, inspire 10,000 Black women to grow their own food. Our vision is to work collectively. Don't do it by ourselves. Get some help. Ask for help. Work collectively. Health and wellness, get back in nature through farming, through growing, and economic development. In the state of South Carolina, agriculture is the #1 industry. Our sister on here, Joyce, who just celebrated her beautiful birthday in Hawaii, she does something that's called a value-added product. She has Ma Bell's Chow Chow, and she has spurred some economic growth in her family, an additional stream. So it can also do that. We've heard from some tree farmers. I think we have 3 or 4 tree farmers that have gotten on in the past. And so again, we know our mission, we know our vision, and I state it every month when we get on the call. And thank you everybody for coming in. I put the agenda in the email, in the Zoom link, in the email this time. And I put something else in there this time that I've not put in the past time. And I said, we believe that food is medicine. And it is our medicine. I'm actually drinking some now, which is hibiscus. If you all know me, you know I'm a hibiscus girl. So our food and our beverages, it is our medicine. And that's what we believe at FarmaSIS. And I always like to start every call off right before our presenter comes. Like to start off with a 1-minute meditation. And before we do the meditation, I do want to say that this call is 1 hour, and you're going to hear me say it again at the end. It is for 1 hour only. I just ask for 1 hour, one time a month of your time to get some information that is always, always, always priceless. It's always priceless. We've been doing it for 2 years now. And again, you always walk away with some nuggets, and you're going to get it again tonight. So before our presenter comes up, we're going to take just 1 minute to center ourselves, to get on the same vibration, to get on the same wave, like this wave in here. So just for 1 minute, again, we're just going to be quiet, be silent, and all get on one accord or one wavelength. Ooh, that minute was too quick, Donna. Okay. So we're gonna get right into it. Thank you, Ms. Donna, for that 1 minute beautiful. That was a quick minute, I tell you. Our speaker for this evening, October 16th, our first, I feel, chilly day in Columbia, South Carolina, is the amazing, and I know y'all can say, you said it about all of them, and it's true about all of them. Amazing sister. I had the wonderful opportunity of meeting many years ago, whatever year you all had your conference and I think it was in Pearl, Mississippi. I met Brewer Boyd, and she is a trailblazer, a crusader, a fighter, a courageous sister. She makes me tired just watching, just looking at her. She's always working on the behalf of Black farmers. She is the president of the Association of American Indian Farmers, which provides advocacy and technical assistance to American Indian farmers and ranchers. I'm not going to read her whole bio because it was in the email. And I don't want to take up a whole lot of time and don't want to insult you by reading everything. But she is all of that and some. So Miss Brewer Boyd, come on to the stage, sister.
Thank you, Benita. I have to say, when I met you and we honored you as being our Farmer of the Year, it was really great because it's really about the work that we're doing, the empowering and the connecting. And I really felt inspired when you were saying, don't do it alone. And that's the thing when we're working in small groups and we're working together and we're sharing and caring, it just makes it so much more enjoyable. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm really excited to share with each of you the information tonight, not only about the National Black Farmers Association, but about the $2.2 billion Discrimination Financial Assistance Program. My husband is John Boyd, founder and president of the National Black Farmers Association, really advocated strongly for the COVID relief measure, which was known as the Emergency Relief for Farmers of Color. So I'm going to cover that a little bit in the presentation. Abby, were you able to get on?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Abigail, is there any way that we can share Abigail's screen and she can do the PowerPoint? My thing is, I'm in rural America. I don't know how many of you are.
Yes.
And I have to leave my camera off so that I can even have a strong signal so you can hear me without it breaking up. But we've been traveling the country. We got a contract from USDA to do a 10-week tour to address the misinformation and scams that were happening in our community with our Black farmers that has carried over from the Pigford cases. And you would think after almost, 15, 20 years, people would not be falling for the same scams. But unfortunately, that's just simply not the truth. So the National Black Farmers Association was founded by my husband and a couple other Black farmers back in the early 90s because they were being discriminated against at USDA. Are you able to get your screen up, Abby?
Donna, were you able to share it with Abby?
I would like to share it.
She can share. It's open for sharing.
You received it, Abigail? You can share. There we go. I see a screen, but I don't see the presentation.
Yeah, see, hers is spooling too. And they're putting all this money now into rural America for the internet, and I sure hope it works better than what we've got right now.
So for those of you who are in rural South Carolina, might know what it feels like.
In rural Florida as well, man. My internet just goes up and down.
Rural period. Rural, we need to get some stronger signals. So Donna, is there a way she can maybe there it is.
There we go. I was gonna say you can also email it to.
Okay, it was loading.
It's loading up. Okay.
Okay, Wise loading, Carl, you can continue, Carl, Wise loading.
Yeah,
still-
so, you know, the challenge for us, and what carried over from the, you know, the Black Farmers Movement, is that we need to talk to each other. When we talk to each other, we can figure out what's going on. And it's not as easy for them to continue to abuse multitudes of us if we're talking to each other. And we're saying, hey, you know, they're doing that to me too. Oh, that happened to you? Oh, but that's not happening to the white farmers. So that's kind of really what helped spearhead and move the Black Farmers Movement forward. And so our mission here is to provide advocacy, outreach, and direct technical assistance. We don't charge for any of our programs and services. We have an annual conference and it's always free to attend. And what I have discovered over the past 13 years doing this work with my husband is that there was basic knowledge and information that our farmers and landowners and community members just didn't have. And one of those being, well, what is a farm? You know, and a lot of people, you know, go into these definitions and, you know, oh, it's 20 acres, or, you know, you have this type of production and things of that nature. But unfortunately, that's just not the case. The definition of a farm at USDA is a tract of land that's owned or operated by the same person. Isn't that crazy? It's just a tract of land that someone operates. And now they've extended that definition, and now you have to have the potential, well, you've always had to have in the past several years, the potential to gross $1,000 annually. So that's what differentiates between a farm and a garden. A garden is a hobby. A farm is a business and an occupation. And so at the end of the year, a farmer is going to file a Schedule F for farm income, where many of you may be familiar with other small businesses. At the end of the year, when they file their 1040, their individual tax returns, they file a Schedule C to report business income. Farmers have to file a Schedule F for farm income. Do ranchers file Schedule Rs? No. Do people who have timber and forestry file, you know, Schedule Ts? No. All agricultural producers and operations file a what? A Schedule F. And USDA, to qualify for those programs and services, when they ask you for your tax returns and documentation, because there's this congressional mandate that you need to have 3 years of experience, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that Schedule F. And so there are people who are making 6 figures on a rooftop in New York City because they understand this system, where we have farmers and landowners and family members, and maybe even some of us, that have a half an acre, 5 acres, or even a backyard, and we're growing and producing food, but we're not filing that Schedule F. We're not self-identifying as Black farmers. And so that's the first step to becoming a Black farmer, is self-identification. So when people tell me or ask, what do I need to do to be a Black farmer? I always say, hey, you got to claim it. And so, you know, when you can say, yes, I'm growing and producing, and what makes me different is that potential. You don't even have to be doing it yet. It didn't say you had to gross $1,000. It says you have to have the potential to gross $1,000. And so one of the examples that I use often is a mint plant. You can go and buy a mint plant, or someone could gift you one. Usually you can purchase one at the grocery for about $3. If you harvest 10 to 15 leaves, that's about an ounce. That ounce of fresh mint is going to sell for $3. You just broke even. What other business can you go and start and break even in one transaction? I don't know of many. And that mint plant's going to continue to produce mint leaves. And you can take those sprigs, lay them over, and it's going to spread. It's very invasive. So you're going to continue to harvest your mint leaves. You can even take those mint leaves, put them in a yellow envelope, put them on the dash of your car, in your windowsill. 7 to 10 days, now you got mint tea, and now you're doing e-commerce. You can take those fresh mint leaves, put them in a mason jar with water, and now you're selling infused water. Sister Benita mentioned earlier someone who was doing value-added products. That becomes a value-added product. And you can actually get an EBT machine to sell these products to your community members. So that's what constitutes a farm, is that now you're growing and producing an agriculture product and you're selling it. And so as we're moving through this and getting access to those resources, as landowners or people who are leasing land, you can take that lease or your deed and go into the county FSA office and get a farm serial number. And that's what makes you eligible to participate in other services. So it's very important that we help each other to get on grid and not to feel that what we're doing is insignificant, that it's not enough, because that's what others, big farmers in this industry, would have us to believe, is that you have to get big or get out. There's no place in agriculture for small producers, when in fact it's the small producers, us, who are actually feeding the majority of our families and our communities. So the work you're doing is very significant, and I want to commend each and every one of you that have been growing and are looking to begin to grow and expand your operations. So what we have now, and as the PowerPoint isn't coming up, in COVID.
I've asked her to email it. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
How long is your presentation? Because we like to keep our meetings to 1 hour.
Oh, it's going to be short. We're going to breeze through this.
Okay, all right.
Abby, go ahead and go. Next slide. I think
Sorry,
it's like
I was
slide.
Technical difficulties that kept kicking me off.
That's fine.
Well, go to the DFAP. So, and Benita, we'll share this with you guys. It's just our mission statement and a little bit of history about the organization and our work. You can skip through that video too, Abby. And that picture right there is of President Bill Clinton. Many of you may have heard about the Pigford settlement, but this is actually John Boyd sitting across the table from President Bill Clinton in 1996. And they actually did a farm foreclosure moratorium after this meeting, and that's what saved my husband's farm from being foreclosed on. And he got a settlement agreement, which gave him debt relief after this meeting. Next slide. So this is a picture that's regarding the second settlement, NRA Black Farmers Discrimination litigation, also known as Pickford 2. This is in the Oval Office after the Claims Remedy bill passed, Claims Remedy Act of 2010, and the farmers were able to, the late filers, get a second round of payments. Next slide. So it's very important, and back up one, Abby, is that both of those cases are closed and settled. But I'm going around the country, we're going around the country, addressing farmers that have been paying $100 a year, thinking they're still going to get $50,000. That is not the case. Both of these settlements are closed and settled. And they won't reopen. You can't reopen these class actions, these settlement agreements, okay? And the deadline to file for the last one was May of 2012. Okay, next slide. What we have here is the old application for the NRA Black Farmers Discrimination, where you could get the $50,000. If you notice, it has the number at the top of the page. It even has civil litigation. There are people mailing me these applications. This is not the correct application for the current pot of money. This is an 8-page application, and it had to be sent to Portland, Oregon. That is done. So I want you guys to remember that 8-page application is old, it's done. Nothing with those Black farmers settlements is going to reopen. And what I'm going to talk to you now about the discrimination fund is totally new and separate. Okay. Next slide, Abby. Next slide. So what that video is talking about there is during COVID in 2020, we had the Emergency Relief for Farmers of Color Act that was passed by Senator Cory Booker and Senator Ralph Warnock. And unfortunately, after that passed, white farmers started suing us in federal court, and they claimed reverse discrimination. And so only 4 farmers ever received that compensation. And we ended up suing the federal government. Next slide, Abby. KJ Marley, Bob Marley's grandson, did a song with us. It's called The Land. So you can listen to that. It tells a little more of the in-depth story. And this right here is Attorney Ben Crump, who filed the class action lawsuit for us in Washington, D.C. in 2020. And it was for those farmers who, just like 40 acres and a mule, were promised by the federal government that they were going to get that complete debt relief, but they didn't get it. The government took it back. The monies that would have paid, it was $4 billion for debt relief, $1 billion for technical assistance and outreach. And what they replaced it with is this new fund in the Inflation Reduction Act, Section 22007. It's $2.2 billion in a discrimination financial assistance program. And it's only one pot of money. And you may have heard in the media, it's $2.2 billion for Black farmers. It is not. It's not $2.2 billion for Native American farmers or minority farmers. It's actually $2.2 billion for any farmer. White, Black, female, veteran, youth, it doesn't matter, any farmer. And I gave you the definition earlier of a farmer who's been discriminated at USDA in a farm lending program prior to 2021, okay? So it's very important that we see the actual language that was passed in the legislation. So when it says any farmer, what's very different about this program and this pot of money, as opposed to the class action settlements, you cannot apply for someone who is deceased. You cannot apply for a spouse who's deceased, a parent who's deceased, a sibling. No one who is deceased can apply for this pot of money. No one can apply on their behalf. It has to be a farmer who's been discriminated at USDA prior to 2021. And the original deadline was October 31st, 2023. When they announced this in July of 2023, July 7th, they gave us less than 120 days to do this application process. This application is 40 pages, not 40 questions. It is 40 pages with 32 pages of explanations and directions and frequently asked questions. So the total packet you're getting or should be getting is 72 pages. And the questions that I've raised about this is when you look at that 40-page application, there is no OMB control number. And any government form that collects information from the public, from more than 10 people in the public, is supposed to have an OMB control number. And I also raised questions. I said, 40 pages, isn't that in violation of the Paper Reduction Act? And you also know that when we do these government forms, there's usually a time requirement. You know, you look at these government forms and it says it should take you 10 minutes or 5 minutes. There's a time requirement to complete it. It's not on this form. So these are all questions that we were raising, but unfortunately, they launched this application. It went live July 7th, and we still had questions that didn't have answers with a deadline of October 31st. So what is our choice here? Do we meet the deadline and get the applications in? Or do we spend our time fighting the system? So what we chose to do was to get the applications completed, help as many people as we could to go through this application process. So you'll notice here that the official website underneath that first paragraph is 22007apply.gov. And why that's important, because people are going on the internet and there are other links that are misleading them, and they're thinking, I applied, I got approved, I'm going to get this money. And that's not going to happen. I got another slide I'll show you. So the records to support these applications, the deadline for requesting those from FSA was originally September the 6th. Most people didn't even know that. It was buried in that set of 32 pages of instructions. So now that has been extended till November 2023. So we got a few more weeks on that. So when you go to FSA, because this is in farm lending programs, and you're requesting your records, which is like a freedom of information request, a FOIA, they're going to ask you for your photo ID. Why are they asking you for your photo ID? Because they want to prove that it's you, okay? And because this process has an end date, but it doesn't have a beginning date, what records should you be requesting? How many years? They're going to ask you what years, what records. So my husband, John Boyd, I'll use him for an example, started farming in 1983. So when he goes into the office to request records, he should be requesting records from 1983 to 2020. Okay, why not 21 and 22? Because everything in this program has to be prior to January 1st, 2021. So don't mention anything in this program about anything that happened after December 31st, 2020. And this is not about sharecropping. It's not about slavery. It's not about your grandparents. It's not about your parents. It's only about you, the individual, as a farmer, and the discrimination that you have experienced at USDA. The only time that it could be in regards to someone else is if there was a loan and you assumed the debt. So let's say my mother had a loan and she was buying our family farm. She passed away and now I assume that debt and I'm making the payments to FSA. So now I'm the farmer, I'm the borrower. Do you see how I'm not applying for my deceased mother? I'm applying for myself because I'm the one now making those payments. And when you go into FSA, I know this is a lot of information. The type of records that you should be requesting are your production records and your loan documents. And why is that? Because if you look back at the language, the definition I gave you for this program, it says that the payment of up to $500,000 is going to be based on what? Based on consequences. So what are consequences? Consequences are your losses or your damages. Okay, so if I got my operator's loan late and I was going to get $20,000 to plant my crop and I didn't get the money until July, then I didn't get the most yields that I could have. And so let's just say I was going to do collard greens. And instead of having 300 head, I only end up with 100 heads because it was late, the ground was hard, and I couldn't get it. So then that would be my loss. I have a loss of 200 heads of collards at whatever dollar amount. When people are looking, the adjudicators are looking at these applications, we've been told that some of them may not even know what a farm is or a cow. So how are they going to be able to estimate your damages? They're not. In this process, we're going to have to tell them, demonstrate to them, and document what the damages, the consequences, and the losses were. Okay, next slide. Okay, so what I've done here is I've listed a couple of historical documents. And what is interesting about this is my husband got a settlement agreement where he got complete debt relief in 1997. Abby, can you click on the first link, Certificate of Satisfaction? Many people don't know that at USDA, the borrower has to remove the liens from their property. Did you guys know that? It's not like a regular mortgage. When you have a mortgage and you finish paying it off, the mortgage company, you know, goes to the clerk of court, takes the lien off, and you get a clear deed. No, USDA prepares these certificates of satisfaction, and you, as the farmer, the borrower, you're required to take them to the clerk of court and have the liens removed from your property that they put on there. If you look at this certificate of satisfaction, it says that John Boyd started taking out loans in 1975. He's the note maker. And then down there, it gives you the amounts. My husband was born in 1965. He would have been 10 years he would have been 10 years old in 1975. So how are these loans his? You have erroneous accounting. These are not my husband's loans. He never borrowed that money. The only loan on this certificate of satisfaction that belonged to my husband was the one in 1989. And what happened, scroll down, Abby, you guys can probably see there on the screen where in 1997, it was never signed or notarized, okay? And there were 5 of these. Go back and go to the next link, Abby. Abby, you're doing a great job. Thank you for your assistance.
Thank you. I'm trying.
And, you know, my husband had a 14-page fact of racial discrimination. So many people are familiar, like I said, with the Pickford. But what predated that was John Boyd's settlement agreement here, where you can see the government said that they're going to forgive him of all his debts and hold him harmless. Okay, this was the original settlement agreement for racial discrimination. You can scroll down to Abby and we'll just go on to the next link. Okay, scroll down. Is that still the same page? I think that's the first one. If we can go to the second page. Go back to the original and click the second link.
Or this one.
Yeah. Yep. Do you see that was dated? Only 3 people signed it. And that was Ira Hobbs, because there was no office of secretary, no office of civil rights. John Boyd and his attorney. This was not notarized and it wasn't recorded anywhere, any courthouse. But thankfully, John Boyd had a copy. You can go back, Abby, and go to the third one. In 2018, John Boyd and I went to buy a farm. And the title insurance company said, you can't buy a farm because you still owe over $600,000 to USDA. What? You've seen that settlement agreement, right? From 1997 said all John Boyd's debts were forgiven. So we went down to the county. That's how we discovered those certificates of satisfaction. And I ended up having to pay the closing attorney to record those for us, to take the USDA liens off of the farm. Even with the erroneous accounting. We filed a complaint. USDA said, oh, they didn't do anything wrong, and their decision was final. Okay, Abby. And I recorded all these in a congressional record on the State of Black Farmers hearing. Next slide. So when you're going out there and you're looking at this new pot of money, this discrimination fund, you're going to see ads. And it says Black Farmer Claim Registration. That is fake. That is a very misleading ad. And it's going to tell you that you can qualify. And it's 2 to 3 minutes. How can you do 40 pages in 2 to 3 minutes? You can't. And it says apply now. All they're doing is getting your information, getting you to sign a limited power of attorney, and they're going to ask you the same 40 questions. They're going to turn it in. And if you receive compensation, the check's going to come to them and not to you. And they're going to take at least 1/3 of the money and send you what's left over. Next slide. And you see this one, So it can't be 2.2 billion for Black farmers, because in this picture, they got a white woman, right? Next one, Abby. So when you're out there, like I said, you can Google all kinds of things and get all kind of information, but it's bad. There is no Black Farmers Claim Form 2023. Next slide, Abby. The only official website where you can go and get the actual application and actually do your application online is 22007apply.gov. And if you need additional information or technical assistance, you can call the 1-800-721-0970. And they will help you locate someone in your area, or they can talk to you over the phone through this process. But what's important to know here, and I shared this with Benita early on in this process, is that we have technical assistance providers that have been compensated over $25 million each to do this work. And so it's very concerning that we have people that still have bad information or don't have any information at this point, but we're very thankful for the extended deadline. So last slide, Abby, and then I'll open it up, Benita, for any questions. And we're going to be in South Carolina this weekend, the 20th, 21st, and 22nd, holding meetings, and we'll have the Windsor Group, that's a technical assistance provider for South Carolina, in attendance with us, along with the printed applications for anybody who would like to come out, get an application, and receive that technical assistance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So before we get to the questions, again, we appreciate everything. Everyone, we recorded it. I know it was a lot of information. And sometimes you have to listen. Well, Benita Clemens has to listen to something 2 or 3 times to really, really, really deep dive into it and understand and, just really, really feel like I have a grasp. So I like to listen to it more than once. So we are, first of all, going to record it. Again, thank you, Kara, for your presentation to make us aware about this money and that there are some scams out there. Don't fall for it, y'all. So she said that they will be doing a tour this weekend coming in South Carolina. On the last email that I sent, I put a copy. Donna, can you pull it up? I put a copy, or maybe put it in the chat. I put a copy of the tour dates and the locations for this weekend.
Thought I had it up. I guess
in South Carolina. So if you can make it to that. And I want to say, to help get this information out this month, October, November, and December, we're going to be talking about this. So next month, I'm going to have another sister, Miss Hunter, to come on and talk about this again. Again, we need to keep listening, share the information, keep listening, because again, I promise you, every time you listen, you're going to gain more knowledge about this and what's going on. So these are the 3 dates. Miss Cara, you going to come on these, or are you tired? You going to get some rest? She don't know how to rest. So October 20th, 21, and 22nd, they will be here. Community Center. Now, I don't know, Book Sports, South Carolina, never heard of it.
That's where Gina and Kevin Mishu are from. That's over towards the like North Myrtle Beach area. Conway
Okay.
area.
So I saw my sister Miko on here. I don't know if she's still on here. Send some of your people to that one, Miko. Pick 42. You still on?
I'm still on, sis. I'm still on. But I didn't
right.
get the details. You said you're going to email where it's going to be?
It's already in the email. The last email I sent. It's going to be in Conway on the 20th, Hartsville on the 21st, and Rembrandt on the 22nd. I'm familiar with Greenfield Farms,
Okay, we'll
home of the Black Cowboy Festival. Huh?
I said, we'll definitely send our people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, they're doing their tour this weekend in South Carolina, the 20th in Conway, the 21st in Hartsville, and the 22nd in Rembert. Again, this month, next month, and December, because the deadline is January 13th. We're gonna be talking about this. But remember, she said that the request for your records, that deadline is November 3rd. The request for your records is November 3rd. And you all please feel free to email me or text me after this, and I'm just going to shoot you on over to somebody else who knows more about this so that you can get more and more help. Again, I'm just being the bridge to get the information out, and I'll connect you.
And what's interesting about this, Benita, is that FSA is under a mandate that they only retain your records for 7 years. And then after the 7 years, they send them to the National Archives. And most of these records have been destroyed. So what's the point of going in and requesting them? Well, at least you've got something that can say, get a receipt of service. I went in, I tried to get the records. They don't have them anymore. This is what happened. And you can get an affidavit from a non-family member, not a family member. A non-family member can do an affidavit, a written statement, have it notarized, saying that, yes, they were with you. Yes, they witnessed it. Yes, told them about it. Things of that nature. It might help John Boyd in his cases where he was writing letters and filing those grievances with the Office of Civil Rights in Washington, D.C. And you can actually see those in some of them, so that was amazing that here was this John Boyd started farming when he was 18 years old, that was doing this level of civil resistance, I guess I'll call it. He was pushing back. He was saying, this isn't right. And he was, raising those flags. And for others who may have shared their story, with a neighbor or someone at the church or someone else in the community, they can do an affidavit to substantiate and be that supporting document or evidence in this claim. And that's why I say it was kind of significant, why I wanted to show that certificate of satisfaction, because for those farmers who had those loans at USDA, they can go to the clerk of court, pull their deeds, and that's going to give them those dollars amounts. We've had farmers that have paid for their loans 2 and 3 times over. And this is where those consequences are in telling that story with some evidence is going to come into play.
Okay.
And the decisions on this process, unfortunately, it's going to be final. So there is really no due process. There is no review or an appeal process. It's a once and done. So you want to try to get it right the first time. But if you filed an application and you've discovered now there's something more you'd like to add or resubmit it, you can. What I've been told is that you can submit applications up to the deadline, and they will review or consider the last dated application, the final one.
Okay. So listen, we're going to open up for questions. And since we had a small delay in getting started, I'm going to say, let's take all questions because of this is so important. I'm going to take all the questions, and then after the questions, all the questions have been answered. For those of you who need to jump off at 8, I understand. But if you want to stay on, again, I want to answer all questions tonight because this is, we got to get this information out. Again, the next presentation, or next month, we're going to hear from a representative from the Windsor Group. Cara said that the Windsor Group will be with her during these 3 sessions in South Carolina. They provide the technical assistance, and they're going to be our next presenters. So questions. I did see one. Can we get copies of the slides? Can you share those slides, Cara?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. Donna, did you see any other questions?
Miko has her hand raised.
Okay.
Yeah. I always have a question, Benita.
What you
Here's my
got? Bring it
question.
on.
Okay, so I had also heard that let's say if you did not take out a loan with the FSA, but you felt, because you felt discriminated, that you could apply. And let me just give a little bit of background here, is that in Marion County is one of like 10 counties in the whole nation that actually was mandated to put a person of color on the county committee. And you know, and in my county that's 60% African American, the FSA office and the USD office, they don't have anybody in there that looks like us. You know, people have long not trusted the government. Thanks to Benita, we've really just started getting people FSA IDs in our county, because they just, I mean, the discrimination was really just that deep, like, don't even dot this door. So in that case, you know, would they have anything they could apply for? They can't, there's no records. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, you know, and that's where it's going to get very tricky, because the legislation actually says a farmer. This program has extended that definition, okay, to include would-be or attempted to farm. That is not anywhere in the legislation. The legislation says a farmer discriminated in a farm lending program. And so I don't know how that's going to weigh out if it's challenged in court. I don't know how it's going to weigh out with these adjudicators and people reviewing them. And that's where the consequences and the burden of proof in this, in conversation with Mrs. Monica Range, who is the Deputy Secretary of the Office of Civil Rights, is that the burden of proof in this is, could this have happened? And so, you know, that's where it's going to be important about that story and the document and the supporting evidence. And nationally, every county that doesn't have a minority committee member is to have an advisor. And so that was something that, you know, wasn't only happening in South Carolina. That's the issue around the majority of the country, is I think less than 2 or 3% of county committees even have a person of color on them. And the advisors don't even have a vote. You know, so it's still a lot of work to be done there. But I'm definitely, you know, aware of the situation where people felt intimidated, felt like they couldn't go in and ask. And then there were people who went and got the loans at the banks. And that's just an area of gray that, unfortunately, the only thing that we have concrete in this is that little paragraph I shared earlier, that it's up to $500,000 based on consequences if you were discriminated in a farm lending program prior to 2021. So how that shakes out, you know, and I just have to say, and this is Kara being honest, and Benita and everybody will tell you, I'm going to speak my truth. This is a very hurried and flawed process. So what they're trying to do was rush and get the money out so that it couldn't be taken back, or if they lose power, you know, it's not repealed like the relief for farmers of color was. So, you know, short answer there is, well, I guess it was a very long answer, is no one really knows, because we have individuals that are going to read these applications and make that decision.
So is your recommendation, thank you so much for your very detailed and thoughtful answer. I mean, and the people that I'm talking about are farmers. You know, they've been farming, they just been doing it and selling the food off the back of their truck. So that
is the problem here, is that less than 2% of Black farmers even have a loan at USDA.
Right.
You see, that's the problem.
But would you recommend they apply? Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, who do we target? Do we just say if you had a loan, or do you recommend somebody in that scenario in our county, which is going to be the majority of farmers, apply?
Right. So when you go through the application and you're looking at page 5 of 10, step 2, it says type of applicant. Then those people are going to check box 1. And I tell you, this thing is so flawed. No one uses this kind of English, right? It's bad English. Self and I was the farm loan borrower, or would-be farm. Well, who says self and I? So looking at that, you know, the first check is I was the farm loan borrower or would be. So that person would be the would-be farmer, and they would check that first box on step 2, page 5 of 10. And then they're going to go through the process. And then they would have to be able to document and demonstrate how that farm lending program discriminated against them and what those consequences were. What are those damages? What are those losses?
Okay, thank you so much.
Go for it, Miko. Go hard.
And that's the thing is, you know, if you don't put an application in, let me say this, then you're not going to get anything.
Right.
So if you put it in, there's a chance, because we don't know. Like I said, I mean, there's just so much gray here that, you know, someone telling their story, you know, because I didn't go because of what happened or whatever, you know. And then, you know, we had examples of in the prior cases where we had 2 identical applications. One was male, one was female. And that was the only difference, the name and the gender. One was approved and got the $50,000. The other one didn't. There were people who went in and said, I asked for an application. They didn't give me one. So-and-so went with me. They got the $50,000, but the farmer over here that lost his farm and his equipment got nothing. There is going to be no rhyme or reason to some of this because there is a human variable in here where I tell people sometimes it's like this. You go to court and you get a judge and he may find favor with you and not give you a high fine, but somebody else can come in right behind you with the same ticket and he throw the book at them. And you're like, but they had the same ticket. They had the same, you know, there's a human factor in there. And unfortunately, that's where I think, in my opinion, we may see this. And so I'm encouraging people, if you feel like you have a claim, put it in. It's not going to hurt you to put it in. It may hurt you not to put it in.
Yeah,
I'm with you
it's
to go
when you said-
for it. I think that if you don't put it on the table, then they don't know that you are aware of the discrepancies. Kadirian had her hand up as well.
I saw it. Kadirian, you still have a question? Want to had your hand up?
Yes, I did have well, I just wanted to say, Miss Carla, thank you for your presentation. I learned a lot, most definitely. I also just wanted to note that one of the supporting documents that the application will allow is an affidavit by a non-family member stating that they had knowledge of you being a farmer or had knowledge of the discrimination that you faced, or, you know, can attest to the farmer's story. That can help their application as well.
Okay.
For supporting documents, because, you know, like she stated, the FSA won't have the records after the 7 years. And a lot of, you know, the discrimination, it may have been further back. And so if that's the case, you want to make sure of course, they request their records from FSA, but they may not have it. And so the affidavit, when you go through the steps, will account for a few of the supporting document requirements.
Right. And just one other thing I didn't hit on is those who were prevailing claimants in Pigford can apply. Those who were denied can apply. Those who never applied can apply. But they do have the list of people who have received monies. Okay. What I can say is I have been told they do not have the applications. So they don't have the claims forms from the prior class action settlements, but they do know who received what amount of money. So if a farmer received the $50,000 and they say their damages from the discrimination was $30,000, they won't give them additional money because they've already gotten $50,000. But if the person got $50,000 and they can demonstrate and document that their damages were $800,000, then they could potentially get up to $500,000. So that's why it's very important for us not to rush through this, but to really take our time, look at the numbers, look at the math, and lay out a very solid claim application packet here. And unfortunately, some of those who are providing technical assistance may not have experience as a paralegal litigation, or even civil rights. Some of the qualifications for some of the TA providers, and they may not know USDA programs either, is that they have computer skills. And so one of the things that I'm seeing myself going through this is if it's disaster or crop insurance, if it's NRCS, if it's a cost share, that is not a farm lending program. This program is for FSA and farm lending. So do you see what I'm saying? I mean, we're in a quandary where people are saying, oh, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you fill this out. But if they don't have the full extent of the knowledge and the experience, you could end up very well hurting yourself by talking about something in this application that doesn't meet that eligibility criteria.
We don't want to do that.
I guess that's the thing that is most fearful to me, is having people saying, oh, I'm going to help you. But I've got people who can't even give me a definition, don't know that a tract of land, the same owner and operator constitutes a farm. They can't tell me there's no minimum land size requirement. They can't tell me these very basic things that some people who have been working through this process with these cases in discrimination for 10, 20, 30 years could bring to this technical assistance process.
So there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of praying. One of my prayers is that they move that deadline again. I'm gonna say it out loud. I need all of y'all collectively to pray for that. We do it collectively. I promise you they'll move it. I've seen miracles. I see them every day. So we do need more time. Again, just the information that we got tonight can feel a little overwhelming. But what I know for sure is that paperwork can be a barrier, but we can get over that barrier. I have received a lot of resources because I set my butt down and did the paperwork.
You've got to read. And like I said, there's 32 pages to take you through the 40 pages. So don't just jump on the application thinking, oh, I got this. Take the time to go through those frequently asked questions, the checklist for supporting documents, and make sure that you're staying within that framework of this program.
And now with the technical support that the Windsor group, do they actually, Ms. Hunter, actually help? Let's say we have an elder farmer that doesn't get on the computer, still got a flip phone, just don't do it. Technology ain't that thing. Does someone help give them additional help? Do you know?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So via over the phone, a Zoom call, or in person, we will go through the application and do it with them. So if it's someone who doesn't use the computer at all, then we sit there and type it for them. And then we give them a paper copy that they could review, or they could use, we make sure they have a copy of their login. And so a lot of times they like to go back through it, look through it again on the e-file document, and then sign at the end. And we will also do, we'll also assist people with paper applications if they insist on doing it that way. But we do highly recommend that, we go ahead, they allow us to type it in for them right then and there. Because as we put it into the system, when you're putting into the e-file system, it will tell you if there are errors or things that are missed, because that's another component. You want to make sure that you complete everything that pertains to you and answer certain questions correctly, because as she stated, when you go through the application, certain questions are going to instruct you to skip steps or go to another question. And if you're reading this and you miss or anything like that, you may fill out the wrong section. And so that's why we recommend doing the e-file way, but Windsor Group will do it with you or for you, however that is. I've done many applications over the phone with farmers.
Oh, over the phone. So, Kyra, when you come to South Carolina, 3 dates, there will be a technical assistant person with you will there be a technical assistant person with you on those 3 days to help if someone actually wants to start their
Yes.
application?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Yes. And like I said, it's very different for farmers and would-be farmers, people who attempted to farm. It's very different. And, you know, Winter Group can't put the information on there for you. They can ask you a question,
Right,
and whatever you tell them is what they have to put on there.
right.
You following
Right.
me?
Yes.
And so for someone who may be older and, you know, how do I say this? And you got to go over your business plan. You got to talk about, okay, well, I was going to get, I asked for a $50,000 operator loan. Okay. I needed that for diesel. I needed it for seeds. I was going to buy a tractor. It was going to be a John Deere, blah, blah, blah. You know, I went into the office. The person looked like this or that. That's where, you know, like I said, it's going to take a little more time, and it's taking most people 4 to 6 hours to complete these applications. This is not a 2 to 3 minute process.
Mhm. Yeah, when you said all those pages, I knew. But again, it can be done.
Right. And then,
Paperwork
like
is
I
a
said,
barrier.
if you're
Can
looking to
be.
get up to 500,000, you're going to have strong documenting evidence support. They're going to tell you, it says you don't need it. Yeah, you know, there are must haves and, you know, shall haves or may haves. But the thing is, if you want the higher values of money, you're going to need to be able to prove or document that those were the consequences or losses. They're not just going to write and give out checks to everybody for $200,000 and $300,000 just because you simply said that this was the case.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you again, Kara, for your information. Thank you, Ms. Hunter. Also, I don't see any more hands up. I don't see any questions in the chat. So I guess that's all minds and hearts are clear.
Amen.
I had one comment or question. Some of the earlier, this is supposed to be for discrimination. It's 40 pages and you kind of highlighted that. It was a lot more than you expected. Do you know the number of pages for prior FDA loans or
Well,
applications?
for the discrimination cases, it was 8 pages.
Not for discrimination. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
This is not a loan form. This form is for discrimination, for compensation. And the prior settlement claims for discrimination, those claims forms were 8 pages. So we went from an 8-page claim form for racial discrimination to a 40-page application for any form of discrimination: gender, religion, sexual identity, politics. Any of these things can now be claimed in this process by any farmer. And it goes back to any beginning date. It isn't like the lawsuits where we had a particular time period due to the lifting of the statute of limitations, which my husband wrote. That was from 1981 to 1997. Now those farmers who even were compensated before under the Pigford or Keepsiegel or the Love or Hispanic case can go back to the 70s. They could go back to the 60s. So before there was a time period that was barred or it was set because of the statute of limitations. This goes back past the 2-year statute of limitations, because anything that happened now could be filed with the Office of Civil Rights, just like with the ARPA. So that's why we're in court with Ben Crump on that. And those farmers that didn't get that money can't claim that in this process because that was 2021, not 2020. So it's 2 very separate issues here, or, you know, processes. Those were lawsuits, that was litigation. This is a line item in a government spending bill. That's for any farmer, for any form of discrimination.
Okay, I guess where I was going with this too is the amount of paperwork here kind of made me go back to the voting rights and how they used to discriminate against people of color, forcing them to go through a lot more challenges to be able to vote, like you had to know the Constitution or something.
Right. And
So
in order to get the money, this is a very lengthy process.
Mhm.
Like I said, that is to me, it's disparate process. When we've had very similar structure settlements for some of these same issues that were a lot shorter application.
Right. That's
All right. Any more questions? I said we're gonna answer everyone.
I've
And
got
again,
one.
we're gonna come back in November. Okay, who said that? Whose voice is that?
That's me, Joyce.
Hey, Joyce.
Hey, hey. So, okay, so my father's dead, but my brother farmed with my dad. And I just sent him some text a few minutes ago to ask some questions. If he farmed with my dad and he filed his farm, the farm number, which is the farm we live on right now, will he also be eligible to apply? I mean, I went through some of the information, I went to the website, but my question is, our farm, the farm number was when my dad, this farm where we're on now, that was tied to the farm where we live, where I live now. And this is where my brother farmed this land.
Okay, so it's kind of twofold. If your father had a loan and your brother assumed that loan, then he's able to apply because he's now the borrower on the father's debt. Okay, he assumed the father's debt. If the father's deceased and the father did not have any debt that was assumed by a family member, then he doesn't have a claim. The family members don't have a claim. Where has a claim is if your brother, as the farmer, was discriminated in a farm program.
So for my dad died 25 years ago, and my brother was farming after that.
So your brother had to have gone to USDA, the one who experienced the discrimination, not your father. He cannot do anything in regards to your father because your father is deceased.
Okay, so my question to him will be, when you went to get a loan for the farm after dad died, were you discriminated against?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's what I needed to know. So I'll follow up with him on that.
Thank you.
I know he got some money with the Pickford, but it wasn't, I mean, it was just a handful of dollars kind of thing. So
right. And a lot of people were able to get that because of the parent.
Yeah.
Because they were the administrator of the estate. But in this is a very different process. This is financial assistance for the farmer. So it has to be the individual. This is not heirs and it's not estates.
Right. Okay.
It's only those individuals who experience the discrimination.
All right. Thank you much.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question in the chat. It says, definition of a farmer. What about indoor urban farmers that don't farm on tracts of land? Is there a place for us?
Any farmer, anyone who attempted to farm, if they went to USDA and tried to borrow money, that's the real question. It's not about the farm operation, okay? So it can be indoors, it can be outdoors, it can be on a rooftop. It can even be a forage operation. Where the real deciding factor is going to come is, were you discriminated in a farm lending program?
Okay.
So it's not based upon an urban farm or inner city farm. It's not about the type of farm operation. It's about the discrimination by the farmer or rancher or landowner at USDA.
Okay. Kadirian, and then Mary will come to you. Ms. Hunter?
Hold on, sorry.
Ms. Hunter?
Sorry, ma'am. I apologize. I wanted to also let you know that, discrimination also includes not giving you, information like they would, the next farmer that came in, delays in the loan, if the loan didn't fund in 30 days, like is customary, not allowing you to apply or giving your application in the first place. And then also they're supposed to document at a certain point how many people come, like whenever someone comes into the office and they wouldn't have those records at this point, but they may not have documented, or they may have, and you can actually reach out to FSA.
And it was actually proven by my husband in a study. Those studies are all on that congressional record, the Glickman report, and a few others. It took over 360 days to process a black farm loan. So those
How
are
long?
things
What?
over 366 days. And like I said, only 2% of black farmers even have a loan at USDA, which is part of the issue.
Hmm.
And
Okay,
I'm in
Mary?
conversations, weekly with the Office of Civil Rights, Dr. Monica Range, and also with the DFAP team, Windsor and Analytic Group.
Mary, you say you have a
Yeah.
question? Come off mute.
Yes, I'm off. My question is, I feel like I was discriminated against because I went into the FSA office and I was inquiring information about a loan, and they were kind of like very vague. They didn't want to give me any information, and then I was applying for something else with the NRCS, and a young white lady walked in, and they just rolled out the carpet for her, gave her all this information, told her she could do X, Y, Z. And I turned around to the lady, I said, "What? How come you didn't tell me any of these things? How come you didn't offer me this information?" And
Right.
I didn't know that when you go in there, you fill out paperwork, they're supposed to give you a receipt to say that, hey, that you were serviced. I didn't know that.
Right. And in fact, that flyer or poster is actually displayed in the office, but it's not up front. It's usually on a side wall. And those are some things that actually came out of our lawsuits when we've sued them. They changed the name in 1994 from Farmers Home Administration. Unfortunately, they didn't change the behavior or the culture. And like I said, I mean, I can tell you things that my husband and I experienced, present day. But things like that, that's what you tell in your story. And then you've got to be able to document in this application the type of loan you were applying for, how much, and what you were going to do with it.
Okay.
And
Thank
that,
you.
like I said, that's the consequences, that's the losses, that's the damages. And, where's the supporting document? I was going to buy a farm. It was 20 acres. Here's the listing. I was going to buy a tractor, John Deere, 5600 series, because I needed a tractor with this many horsepower. Those are the type of things that, in my opinion, I feel that, just my history of working on all these discrimination cases, that will weight those and, definitely help those people who may not be familiar with farming, deciding these cases or these applications rather.
Okay. I actually had to call another FSA office in Augusta to actually get them to send me the application because they wouldn't give me that.
But do you see how documenting that? Well, I went in such and such date, they didn't do it. I, called down there, I spoke to such and such, they mailed me one. And then that's a delay of time that it took another 3 to 4 weeks. And then another situation that happened or, happens often is that the farm loan manager will call someone and say, look, we're not going to approve you. We need you to voluntarily withdraw your application. Well, if you voluntarily withdraw the application, then you don't get a denial and you can't appeal it. And there's no history of you ever even applying. So it's a lot of things there. And like I said, it's all going to be up to these individuals to be able to document and tell their story with supporting.
And that's the next thing that happened. Then when I did actually talk to the loan officer, well, you need to go to 3 banks and get disapproved, get disapproved from the 3 banks, and then we will start your application.
And that used to be the process, and because USDA was a last resort lender, unfortunately, they didn't do that to everyone, but that was the process. And so, and I'll just say this because I've worked on these prior cases, and when we did like the women and Hispanics or the Black farmers, we had to state those 3 banks that you went to, and we had to try to find supporting documents that substantiated that, yes, you went there, yes, you attempted to get those loans and things of that nature. So like I said, it's I got a lot of history in this work, and I'm very concerned about this process. But it is what it is, and we're going to try to make the best of it.
Ms. Hunter, your hand is raised again, or was it not
Thank you.
lowered? Okay. All right.
Wasn't lowered before.
Okay. So I think we've answered all the questions in chat. I'm gonna say it again. Any more questions? And we're gonna come again in November with information about this again. And in December, because the deadline is January. We're gonna do our best to get this information out to as many farmers as possible. And if it hasn't happened to you, you may know someone who it has happened to. Please share the information with them. I think that's it. Okay, so again, one more time, all minds and hearts clear. Think
Amen.
so? All right. Well, listen, y'all have a great night, great week. Thank you, Cara, and I hope there's many of you who can attend the sessions. Cara, fortunately and unfortunately, I have a big weekend. It's Benedict's homecoming, and we're also celebrating the 75th year of our chapter, which is Delta Sigma Theta. So I'm going to be on lock from Wednesday till Sunday night. But please go and hear the information. And if you have any questions or think of anything, you can shoot me an email. And again, I will connect you to the experts. I will connect you.